Mika Jenkins, who is Clif's associate, and Clif with us. So with that, if y'all don't mind, I may be a minute early, Justice Ash, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to call the meeting to order, and I'll tell you why I'm going to call it to order, because Justice Burge contacted me, and everybody's aware that Justice Burge has had some health issues. Right now, he's not in a bad place in that he feels good. He's out of quarantine. He did go through 14 days of COVID positivity and quarantine, but he was always asymptomatic. So it wasn't a hard COVID term on him, but he's trying to get ready for other additional medical matters. And he's going to have surgery on the 27th of January, and he's got a lot to get done before now and then. He said he simply could not make today's meeting, and we need to have today's meeting. So he called and asked if I would stand in his place as chair for the day until he can get back. And now, between now and the 27th, he will be available, and he's hoping to make some meetings and participate in business. But just today, he asked if I'd stand in for him. So with y'all's permission, if you don't mind, then I'll kind of direct the meeting for the day. We have 2 committee members here. We've got new committees, everybody's new. And we have 2 new JPs on this committee, and glad to have them, Justice McDonald and Justice McClanahan. At our last regular quorum court meeting in December, we had one ordinance that was tabled, and it was an appropriation ordinance for A J Aviation out of the Manila airport. It's been an ongoing project for quite some time, and there were some questions that were brought up, and everybody knows it was Justice Ash. So, but he wasn't the only one. Everybody had some questions. I'm just picking on Rick. It's the beginning of the year. Why not?
It's all right, I'll get in.
I know you will. First Personnel Committee, I'm roast, I know. But we did have some questions, and rather than let the motion fail due to lack of 8 positive votes, we tabled it, so it's easy to bring back up. But it's also easy to answer the questions that we had. I will tell you that I have gone to Manila this past few days. In fact, you should have seen me on the front page of the newspaper. Thanks to our reporter over here. I swore in the city council the other night there at the Manila airport, and took the time with Ray Benson to go over and look at this building, this hangar and operations building that they're working on. So what we had in Manila before all this started was we had a large hangar there on the airport that wasn't occupied, and we had a mechanic from mechanic service from Springdale, Northwest Arkansas, that wanted to come in and relocate and put in an airplane service center. He was working out of the Northwest Regional Airport over there, and traffic got so heavy that it was almost cumbersome to him. So he needed to move to a less trafficked area, and he was drawing business from all over the country. The difference in flying to Fayetteville from Illinois and flying to Manila from Illinois is no difference, basically. So he can operate just as easily out of Manila as he could out of Fayetteville. And we've got a wonderful airport. If you haven't seen it, I'd really like to set up a time and get y'all to come look at it. But he wanted to come in and occupy the current big hangar that we had. Well, when that happened, this other gentleman had an avionics business. Avionics is repair technology on all the instrumentation in an airplane. If you look at an airplane, the skin, the wheels, the stuff that you see on the airplane is actually kind of minor in cost. It's the instrument panel that's actually the expensive portion of it. And even in a small plane, you can run from $50,000 to over $200,000 in instrumentation. They're very expensive to put in and very expensive to keep up. It's a big business. It's a truly big business. So this gentleman in Northwest Arkansas had an avionics business and saw the repair business move into Manila. They tie together very well. when somebody comes in to have work done on the motor or on the skin or on any portion of the airplane, often they also need avionics work done at the same time. So that's how this A&J project started. This gentleman wanted to come and relocate also in Manila and be real close, in fact right now, right next to the initial repair shop. They aren't adjoining, but they could be. A very short hallway would actually connect the two big buildings. The building that we have started here is a 100 by 100 facility. It's actually larger. It's actually larger than the original big air hangar that we had. That building is virtually the airplane part of it is virtually complete. In that when I went in the other day, it's insulated on the inside. There are actually 7 airplanes sitting in there right now that are there to be worked on. Maybe not the avionics because it's not there yet, but the building next door. So I was surprised when I walked in and saw 7 airplanes in there a couple nights ago. It's that large. So we've gotten to the point now where the building's not complete and the guy's out of money, and I'm going to let Cliff talk about that just a little bit, but I want you to know that we have a big, beautiful building sitting on that airport. So what we have is a county building virtually sitting on on Manila City ground, on airport ground. It is a public-owned facility. The money that we have put into it is still owned by the public. Any additional money that we put into it will be owned by the public. This is a privately owned facility. So, if this guy disappears and goes away, evaporates, we still have the building. And it's still there on Manila Airport, and it would still be available for other businesses if that ever were to become necessary. So he came to us, and for reasons that Cliff will explain, he's asking for an additional approximate $75,000 to finish out the building. When I looked at it, the big interior portion, the big portion, the hangar portion is virtually complete, but the work section is not. It's still an empty shell. And still needs a wall, an exterior wall, still needs to be boxed in, fitted in. They've got a few metal studs up, but it still needs completion. And that's where the extra money is coming in. I think Cliff's going to tell you that we originally bid the project, and then the original bid, it wasn't even close to what we were hoping we could get the building built for. So we rebid the project. And in that case, unless I'm mistaken, I think Mr. Cliff will share with you that we got 3 bids. And one of the bidders truly is the guy that is putting in the avionics business, and he had the lowest bid. He also has a construction company. So that's where we were at when we very first started. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Cliff and let him pick up from there and then field the questions.
Thank you, Justice White. I think everyone has a sheet, which is a summary sheet of the numbers involved.
Did you give the mayor a copy by any chance?
No, let me
Would you, here, let me have a couple, and I'll give them to Mayor and Justice Smith.
That's what.
Oh, wait, that's what you're talking about. I thought you had a different. I'm sorry, I did have one.
Smith, that's it.
Okay.
I thought you were talking about referencing that.
No, this is, so our original bid, the only bidder on the first round was, we began thinking that the building would cost approximately $480,000. That was just based on my conversations with contractors back in 2018. The first bid came in from Dennis Allen. It was the low bid. I don't think there were any other bidders, but his bid was $955,000. That was too high to accept, so we didn't accept the bid. Then I visited with Mr. McMahon, and he thought that, I talked him into making a bid. And he bid $654,000 the next time. And we didn't accept that bid either. So during this time, I'm in conversations with Jeff Mann, who is the owner both of a construction company and the anticipated avionics company, which is now in operation in northwest Arkansas. So the third time we bid it, and by this time we had gotten into the late fall, his bid was $529,512, and we accepted that bid. You can see from your original things that we first did $480 from the quorum court when we thought that would be the bid. Of course, we didn't accept any of those bids. Then it was brought back to the court. The court added another 30, which brought us up to 510. And then, because he was held up over the winter, the county went ahead and bought the building. The building was built over the winter. But all of this time, of course, things are going by and the COVID is on its way. So in May of 19, we added another $45,000. And construction proceeded up until December of this year, when the project just ran out of money, and primarily, according to Mr. Mann, because of price increases due to the COVID. And I think that price increases in construction materials over 2019 were not unusual. I mean, I've talked with people who were building homes, and things just spiraled. So those come up to an amount of $74,956 of what's left on the project. I've gotten these two sheets out of order. But that's why we're asking for $75,000 to finish the project. The unanticipated costs actually come out, where the price increases were, come out to $76,208. Primarily in erection costs, concrete costs, fan and heater costs, and then we had to have an engineer. We always have to have an engineer when the county bids a project. And for years, we used the gentleman from Joyner. Goodness.
You know, Rick,
Trying to remember his name.
I know him too, and I can't
Several
think of
times.
it.
We've always used him at the Aeroplex. He was a civil engineer and very good, but he would normally charge like $500 or maybe $750 for something like this. But he passed away, and we had to get an engineer out of Jonesboro who charged us $11,000. So that was unanticipated cost. So that's a rundown of how we got to where we are. And so maybe we just ought to start with the question.
Since I'm the one who brought up all the questions, now that I see the figures, our original bid, our original thought was it was going to be $480,000.
Mm-hmm.
But we allotted an extra $30,000 right off the bat for $510,000.
Mm-hmm.
We were still $19,000 short on how much we allotted.
Mm-hmm.
So the other $45,000 was to bring us up to the $529,512 plus some additional money, which looks like puts us at $555,000, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That makes more sense than what I heard originally.
Right.
Okay. Knowing that the bid was $529,512,000, and basically it took us 3 appropriations to get it to at least that amount, and basically leave another $19,000 in there. You know, I'm not objecting to that anymore. And I will tell you that I did check with because I brought up questions whether he could even bid it or could finish the building because his contractor license was expired. He can finish it because he started it when he had a license. So we're not into any legal issues there.
So he can finish it?
He can finish it. It wouldn't hurt us if he couldn't. If he did it, it would be fine to him. but that's not an issue.
I believe he still has his federal license because he does DOD projects.
Okay, but see, in Arkansas, you have to have an Arkansas contractor's license to be able to build anything.
If you're a federal one though, as in you work, take federal contracts, you're Arkansas preempted from saying you can't.
I think so.
I had a Supreme Court case over it.
Okay. I just know that on federal projects, we can't, local inspectors can't even inspect them.
Yes, sir.
But since this is a municipal or a county-owned building, yes, they can.
Yes, sir.
And the reason he doesn't have the contractor's license is because the company is in bankruptcy. Why did,
Bankruptcy has nothing to do with it. Their license expired.
You told me April, I think.
July of last year, well, it may have been April of this year.
Yeah, you told me April of this year.
Oh, last year.
Of 2020.
2020. So, but that doesn't affect it at all.
He just voluntarily chose not to renew it, or was it
Yes.
revoked?
He doesn't even have, I think they had one complaint, but it was many, many years ago, and I don't remember now. May not even have a complaint on the license.
So he doesn't intend to continue the construction business in Arkansas?
He
I don't know, I
does.
have not talked to
Okay.
him.
So that's just a timing issue?
He
then?
went through a tumble. I mean, he
Okay.
went through a financial tumble. He had I really, and this is not worth anything as far as y'all's deliberations. My own belief is that if he had not had the reverses in his primary construction business, that he in fact did suffer, that he would have finished the project
Okay.
without further request, because he's excited to start the avionics business.
So he's gonna continue to work, do both of them concurrently, both companies in Arkansas?
Yes, he has been doing them for years. I mean, he's just gonna be moving his operations from Springdale to Manila.
Okay, that was my.
And we've had conversations with the college and they're, looking forward to training.
Okay.
Some of the people are gonna move. Actually, a couple have already moved over, and are working with the other unit. Those two gentlemen are pretty closely connected business-wise.
And I will even go a little bit further and say that, yes, I deal in construction every day. And I will tell you that building a house has went up by at least 10 to maybe 20% because of COVID. You can't get equipment. A sheet of OSB that used to cost $7.95 is now over $20. And I'm talking less than 3 years difference. With steel, you had a big construction, or you had a big jump in price because of the tariffs that were placed. A lot of places were using the Chinese steel, but that still drove the prices of them up. COVID has put people off, so the demand is high and supply is low.
Yeah.
So it has caused price increases. And I'll shut up now.
If we just chose not to give them any more, where are we? We've got a partially completed building, no business, no occupants or anything. It is public, I mean, we own it. The city and the county owns all the property. It's our building that'll be incomplete.
So it's the finishing side of things that hasn't been completed, correct? On the
Primarily,
inside,
yes.
which that makes sense that would be the stuff that it has gone up in price significantly over the last 2 years.
If it hadn't been right at dusk dark, I would have taken pictures and been glad to have brought those. But anybody'd like to go over there, I'd be glad to take them over there. I bet we could get the mayor to meet us and walk through and look. And it's honestly, guys, when I looked at it, I was excited and impressed. It's something to be proud of. I mean, it's a great building, and it would be sad for us to not finish it, regardless of what we think about the business, if we support that or don't support that. But if we do this, then we'll have a completed building, and then we'll also have this new business coming in with more new people, more new jobs, and I think it'll generate much more traffic into Manila. You just can't imagine how proud I am of our airport over there and the way it looks. It's wonderful. It really is. So anyway, that's where I feel about it.
Mr. Chitwood, how confident are they that this fix, since we've already made 3 appropriations, that this will be the final appropriation and they're not gonna come back and ask for more. I mean, we're pretty confident the $75,000 will finish the project.
I've made it clear to him that this would be it, you
Okay.
know, that if he can't, our alternative is to notify the bonding company, and he has bonded, that we have a failure to complete. In that case, the bonding company would complete the building.
Okay,
But at that point, then, they would take out liens upon Mr. Mann. Right now, he's in a type of Chapter 9 protective bankruptcy. He's still operating his construction company. He still is operating his avionics business, which is a separate business entity. But if he gets that lien on him, that will probably finish him up. And then we'll have a brand new building and no tenants and no jobs. And
okay.
so that's the political decision in front of the justices is what they want to do.
Okay, so but we had to hire, one of the additional expenses we didn't anticipate was we had to hire an engineer out of Jonesboro.
Yes, sir.
And I know now they have to have engineers come in and check at certain points, and most likely, especially if he has a federal construction license, because they changed this about 2 years ago, and a lot of people don't even realize it. If you're gonna build a building now, just like we're doing with the courthouse, we have hired a separate engineer who comes in and tests the concrete. They actually pull cylinders of concrete. They break it at 7, 14, and 21 days to make sure that it is to the standard that it's supposed to be. They also check all the rebar. This is in addition to the inspection of the building inspectors. And those are not cheap. You know, I'm gonna say I've done a little reading on it, a little checking. My main concern was what was the original bid and why had we already appropriated $75,000? Well, now I see why, okay?
Well,
And
now
I'm
that
not
you've
on this
gathered-
committee, so I don't get a vote on it.
No, but now that you've gathered all this, and you've probably studied it more than most of the JPs, do you feel that you could support the project now?
Oh, don't get me wrong, I supported the project all along. I supported the business coming in all along, but I'm not one, we are stewards of the county's money,
Exactly.
you know. And if this was because of, the bid was too low, and that was just, I'm sorry, I'm the one who's the cynical one, I was a cop for too long. Just because he bid it low enough he could get the job, and he thought, well, I can get him to pay for the other stuff, then I would have had a real problem with it. I don't see that that's what's happened, knowing that the original bid was what it was and how we appropriated things. I think that was legitimate. I think the overruns and the cost increase are legitimate. So yes, I will support it if it makes it out of committee,
So,
unless somebody else has questions about it.
He didn't want to do the job. I mean, I didn't want him to have to do the job. I mean, there's obviously a parallel thing there that I wish hadn't happened, but after the first two bids, then he agreed. I really think what he did, I think he bid his cost, his
right.
absolute cost.
And costs have gone, that's only, I mean, $100,000 over his original bid is only what, about 18% increase, and there, I mean, proof is in the pudding that construction costs have gone up that much in that time frame. Yeah, so at this point, you need a motion?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I make a motion that we approve, or we send to the finance committee the appropriation for an additional $75,000 for A&J project.
I second.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor? Okay. We'll move this, we'll take it to finance. We can actually just probably move it back to the floor without actually going to
Oh,
the
okay.
finance because it's just
There
been
you go.
tabled.
Okay.
It's already come out,
Okay.
and we'll bring it back up at the next regular committee meeting. Cliff, I think, do you not have another project to bring to us today, or is this all you had for us?
This is all I have today. I
It
mean,
is?
We're working several projects. We're working potentially up to a 300 job project that would be located at the Aeroplex. Well, excuse me, am I?
I'm sorry, are we gonna talk about Mr. Davis rent line item? So that-
Oh, yes, I'm
Okay.
sorry. Could you come explain that, please, to me? I don't think I ever quite.
Good morning. We did, pass an amount for Mr. Davis Pickles, to, get his business started. And, Kelly is, saying that we can no longer pay the rent out of, the line item that was appropriated to buy equipment and different things. And so, she was wanting the Quorum Court to reappropriate the line item so that we could, pay the rent and insurance down on that project. And then we'll be finished with that project this year.
How much is that, Tamika?
It's approximately $3,000, I think, that we have left.
Of the original 50.
Yes,
So you just need the remaining balance of the original 50 reappropriated?
yes, towards rent and insurance, to cover the insurance.
So it's not a new appropriation, it's just moved, it's not a new appropriation.
Correct, it's not a new appropriation, it's just realigning the line item so that she'll be able to pay it in an orderly fashion.
I thought they purchased that building.
No, he's renting it from Mr. Mason.
Okay.
And he has a rent contract through this year at the same rent.
Mm-hmm.
Does
Same
Southworth that?
You knew where I was going with you. Yay!
So is this something we actually need to do, or is this something that could be reappropriated by court? Because the money's appropriated,
Monies.
it just needs to be moved from one line item to another.
Right.
But so when we moved the money, we've already done this once, right? We separated them, and he just didn't use all the money for
Equipment
goods.
and
So
stuff.
he's
Right.
wanting to use it for the
Right.
rent.
Correct.
So is
Anybody
that
got
a-
a problem with that?
No, I mean, is that actually, but that comes through this committee and not through the finance since it's already been appropriated?
Let's take it through this committee first because it was an economic project and
Okay.
then we'll run it through finance.
Okay, okay, just
So
still
can I have a
learning.
motion of
Yeah.
some kind?
I'll make a motion to reappropriate the remaining $3,000 to a line item for rent.
Mr. McDonald, you okay?
Second.
Second, motion and second made, all in favor?
So, as I said, we're working the project that would go to the Aeroplex. The governor's made a call for us on that project. I think and we have other elected officials at the state level that are preparing to make calls. We have a large project that is interested in the last piece of ground that I can find in Mississippi County where you could actually locate as Nucor and Big River Steel have with direct access to both the rail, river, and heavy electricity. And the only site that's left there is one just to the south of the Plum Point Power Station in Osceola. So we actually have two companies looking at that site right now. So 2019 was it was a busy year. We worked a lot of projects. Because normally, when companies finish up the year with their final quarter, that's when the board will look around and they'll say, well, Mr. McDonald, you've done a great job and business is growing, so we want you to look at where your division might expand or put in a new plant. And so we get all those requests for information in January. And that keeps us really busy January, February, March, and we turn in a lot, and then it compresses until finally, hopefully, by the end of the year, we get a project. Well, in 2019, we didn't actually, I don't think we actually closed on a project, although we worked so many, because that same dynamic of it was always the fourth quarter throughout 2019. When it was March, they say, okay, now if we get back to work by July, what will we do? And so there'd be another flood of requests for information, and same through August and October, and it's still going on. And so I'm optimistic that hopefully when we get the vaccine, that there'll be businesses that will be interested in expansion. And we do. One thing that I find really marvelous, really is the word I think, is that in Mississippi County, in 2019, we had $1.5 billion in capital investment invested here in this county. 1.5 billion. And with it, that's carrying the creation of about 250 jobs. And to me, that's an affirmation of the fact that the people, this court, the way economic development has been directed, is on the right track. That in pursuing heavy industries such as we've done, companies like Big River and now U.S. Steel and Nucor, even something as terrible as the COVID pandemic is not going to seriously interrupt their capital spending plans, because they're basing their decisions on 10 years, 15 years out. And this year we were the beneficiaries of that.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
So, is the old Snyder Tire building in use, or have we got anything going on?
We've got something going. Now, I'm thank you for bringing that up. The Juno building has been leased on a lease purchase to Bronco, the pipe fitters. And that's a project that we had allocated money for, but we're not going to use that money. And I've returned that, I think, to the general economic, or asked that it be returned to the general economic fund, because so they've moved into the building, and they've signed a lease. The judge has signed a lease. They have it under their insurance program with liability. They have the security, and excuse me. Oh, I thought you.
I just wanted to double back to the airport thing. I just had a few questions, but you can finish.
All right.
Right.
So that building's off our books essentially as far as upkeep, and then I have a good prospect that is interested in the Snyder building.
Where's that?
It's Snyder is just beyond where it's,
It's just south of SRT.
yeah.
Okay.
The SRT Condominium. Right across from Razorback, almost across from Razorback Conduit.
Okay.
So does anybody know about the federal court case that he has? Because I have questions about that.
Who?
With Jeff Mann, the LLC.
No, I don't. I'll give you his contact information before.
Okay, and can I get a copy of the contract when we did the original one?
Right.
And the notice that we sent out about
Right.
the return bids. So who did we actually go into business with? He's got 3 LLCs that are roughly named the same.
It's the avionics company.
Was it Avionics Manila or Avionics? They're based out of the same place. And
So,
that's why I wanted to see the contract.
so the construction contract is with his construction company out of Springdale, and the economic development contract is with the avionics, the avionics company out of Springdale.
So they're all 3 listed Springdale at the same industry address, but he has one named Aviation, and then he has one specified Aviation Manila.
So we have the economic development company with A J Aviation.
Just not the Manila one.
Yes.
That's why I was curious. I was just curious about that. That was weird to me, but okay. I got a few other questions about it, but I'll follow up afterwards.
Okay. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Cliff. Any other JPs have any other questions? We do thank the mayor of Manila and Mr. Greg Smith for coming over. Have y'all got any questions before we
Just
adjourn?
Thank you, Justice White and the rest of the committee, and we very much appreciate the comments that was made, and I think once the structure is completed, we'll be very proud of it. The other thing that I'm super proud of, that it's gonna bring revenue from places like Springfield, Missouri, Kansas City, Tulsa, that we're not just fighting over sales tax dollars out of Jonesboro and Little Rock and so forth. This will be entirely new money coming into the state of Arkansas and especially Mississippi County.
Excellent. Once again, I just can't welcome all the new JPs. Aaron's new and not new. So, welcome back. But we really welcome y'all, and I can't tell you how proud I am of the fact that y'all have attended meetings. You walk right in, you're ready to sit down and go to work because you know what it's about. You know, you're pre-trained, and and looking forward to working the whole term with you. Molly, anything out of you before we could adjourn?
No.
Good. Meeting adjourned.
Just thought you'd ask.